Thank you. I'm very honored to have been invited to this 10 years anniversary, which really marks an important initiative and a growing trend in the world. I've been asked to talk about opportunities for cooperation between business and development cooperation. Two entirely different sectors and perhaps two entirely different worlds. But since I represent an organization that has decades of experience of doing just that, I will share with you some insights of the projects and the experience that we have made. I myself have been working firstly with private sector development in East Africa, then designing a policy advocacy for private sector in Zimbabwe, developing our initiatives in Myanmar early on, setting up educational programs for market economy training in North Korea, and also, luckily, our HIV/AIDS wellness program, which I also will be telling you a little bit more about. I will start by making an attempt to describe the globalized world of today. In particular, what challenges it poses for business, what risks that entails, and how we can achieve solutions, and how we can work with those challenges as business and business organizations. I will also present to you the reason that we as a business organization choose to work with these challenges. And as a conclusion, I will give you two examples of where companies, local private sector, and the donor community have cooperated in win-win-win situations. So I work at NIR, which is a Swedish abbreviation for International Council of Swedish Industry. It's a small non-profit organization, and we have been breaking new ground in all our 54 years of operation. Then, of course, in 1960, when we were founded, the world was an entirely different place. So today, we see a new world. Since some years back, and at an accelerating speed, the economic power has shifted from old leaders to new. The rise of China, Brazil, Russia, and India has fundamentally altered the power balances in the world. And it's very likely that this is just a process that has just begun. And at the same time, information revolution has speeded the globalization even further. The world market is now truly global in the way that we've never seen before. This process obviously presents interesting new opportunities for companies that have the capacity to make use of this new order. The opportunities are often connected to faraway markets. You can see at the pictures that the top 20 emerging markets of 2014, which they are, and the picture gets even clearer if you look at the fastest growing markets. Obviously it has to do with the baseline, but it's a really clear picture. It's also evident when you look at these pictures that these are countries or markets that come with challenges. And in a way, these are the same challenges. These are not new challenges. It used to be our challenges in the developed world, but it also has to do with the intrinsic needs of business. These are challenges for business demand, for a stable business environment, for stable institutions, for infrastructure, access to credit and finance, access to skilled people, and so forth. All over the world, business have the same need. But however, as a result of globalization, we now seek opportunities in markets where this more often are challenges than opportunities. And the major growth potential is also in these markets, as you well know. So the world is changing, but the fundamental requirements for business are not. And these fundamental challenges poses risk to companies. So in essence, what we are talking about is risk management. You have reputational risk, you have operational risk, you have commercial risk and political risk. And all this affects your opportunity to make sustainable and successful business. And in today's truly globalized world, where good and bad news travel very, very fast, no company can afford to risk just that. And this is precisely the insight that our organization and the members that we organize have, which is why we support their sustainable engagement in very complex markets. We look at the next emerging markets, where we have a long-term interest and where we can support the development of business environment or conditions that enable Swedish business to take part or to engage. These are our current members. You may be recognizing some of them. They're mainly in industry and manufacturing. And you can also note that a lot of them are present in close to 200 markets and have been for decades and in some cases for over 100 years. These are truly global companies. So let me share some examples of how you can address the challenges that are challenging the fundamental demands that business have in a complex environment. And in particular, with choosing the right partners. The way that we see the world is pretty simple. This is a schematic picture of a market. You see a level of engagement that should be interpreted as interest from companies, or how many companies are engaged in the market. And as time goes by and development also is growing, you see there are more companies that are interested or present at the market. And apart from having an ethical compass, due diligence and good management structures, what can companies do to work with these risks and challenges to their sustainable and successful business? We think that information is key, intelligence. And this is something that you need to be very good at throughout your engagement. What we offer our companies are intelligence even though they're not in the market. Even perhaps it's 10 years from their market entry. Working with market intelligence, building networks and relations with key stakeholders, key decision makers of today, but perhaps more importantly in the markets where we are, tomorrow's key decision makers. And we divide the different challenges that a company can encounter into three parts. Intelligence is one. The second one is business fundamentals, that we call it. This has to do with business environment. It has to do with transparency, rule of law, institutions. Is there a functioning central bank or not? Do you have a private sector organization that can lobby for your interests? Do you have a foreign direct investment law that is up to standards or not? If not, we can work with all these issues. Thirdly, if a company has an engagement in market, we look at business development. What issues that are also in society's interest can we work with? And, for example, skills development, vocational training, that is truly a need for the company, but also a need for society. The other example would be the wellness program, which I briefly mentioned before. HIV and AIDS in sub-Saharan Africa is a great challenge for both society and economy, and that could also be something that you work with. And the interesting thing is, when you look at all these challenges, needs, and risk management as we see it from business side, you can also translate it to development cooperation interests or society's interests. So in essence, what we see is that we are pursuing a common interest here, where intelligence as relations, where business fundamentals can be translated into business environment reform or market development of a functioning market economy. And lastly, but not the least, where the business development aspects of skills development, finding the right people and leadership is translated into the need for decent jobs and human resource development. So in that sense, we really are pursuing common interests. And this is why NIR, since the 1990s already, have been cooperating with the Swedish Development Cooperation Agency, the SIDA, and continues to do so. Currently, we work with SIDA in 8 long-term programs covering 17 countries. And I will give you just 2 examples, I won't go into all 17. One example is from vocational training program in Colombia. Now you would say that Colombia is perhaps an emerging market, yes, but it's not an extremely complicated market in the most senses. But in one aspect it really is, and it's a very conflict-prone and conflict-effective country. And what we try to do here is to take the issue of scarce mechanics in very remote areas in Colombia. There are very few people that are willing to take on a job in conflict-prone areas in Colombia. We worked with two of our companies, Electrolux and Scania, and they, together with us, provided vocational training for 2, as we call it, vulnerable groups. 1, ex-combatants, ex-militias and ex-FARC guerrillas, giving them vocational training and later on employment for almost half of them within these 2 companies. And the other group, which was youth, vulnerable in the sense that they were susceptible to being enrolled by criminal gangs, they were also educated to become mechanics. As you can see, this is really catering for the needs both of the companies and society, and it's truly a win-win situation. One important aspect of this example is not just that it's put in a very complex environment, but it's also the inclusion of local organizations, local partners. 2 key aspects are, we worked with the local integration authority, the government's authority on integration, and the private sector organization in Colombia and the employer organization. This is key to success. And lastly, an example that works with HIV and AIDS in South Africa. As you know, the pandemic has been a real trouble for both society and economy in many sub-Saharan Africa, many countries in sub-Saharan Africa. It's a problem because you lose not only your customers, you lose productivity, you lose trained people, and you lose people's time in work when they have to go to funerals. It's obviously also a humanitarian problem, it's a societal problem, and it's simply the right thing to do. But it's not only the right thing to do, it also increases productivity in a very, very evident way. In the program that we've had, and we have done this for over 10 years now, we now have 200 workplaces in Sub-Saharan Africa in 11 countries. And we finance the workplaces in 3 tiers. First year they get 60% of the budget for the program, second year 40%, third year 20%. And the interesting thing is that after concluding financing, 100% of the workplaces retain their budget with their own financing after we withdraw. I think that this is a very interesting signal that this is indeed sustainable and that it gets into the heart of the core for the company. It also tells you another thing, and it's that the catalytic effect of development cooperation can indeed be very important. So I would like to conclude with that. We have really very lot in common. We share interests, and we should, both sides, if we would like to say side, really partner in providing leadership in these issues that are really common sense. Thank you for that.